What's up, Rubits? Little Big Robots back with a video today. I thought it would be kind of cool to have a little bit of a discussion for today's video. I think this will go along the lines of the Little Big Robots podcast, so I'll go ahead and be labeling it as such. I do them few and far between, but there you go. So just before we get started, if you like videos of like little big robots, like the channel is named, I put out 2 per week, Wednesdays and Saturdays. I've done it for several years, and the channel used to be about video games, but now I switched to toys probably 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I really enjoy it. So if you enjoy that type of thing, please subscribe. I'm trying to get to like 8,000-9,000 by the end of 24. I think that would be fantastico. But today I thought it would be fun to talk about a question that I've seen come up several times now over the last year or so. I'm a member of a few toy subreddits and groups on Facebook, stuff like that. And a lot of them are populated by generally young men, but there's also young women and others as well. And my cat is playing right now, speaking of the topic. And I've noticed that one of the questions that comes up, or one of the discussions that comes up a lot, is do you still play with your toys? And sometimes the question is literally asked like that: do you guys still play with your toys? One particular question, which I found very interesting, was a young person who said that they were in high school, and a girl they liked, I don't know if it was a girl they liked, but a girl they knew, they said, walked in on them, kind of quote unquote, playing in a classroom with a toy. So I think the situation was that there was a toy sitting there, like a Power Rangers or something like that. And the kid started playing with it, and a girl walked in and saw him play. And he was wondering if he should be embarrassed or shocked or how he should feel about it. And generally everybody was very supportive. I said, you don't need to feel ashamed of it, but you do need to question why you might be still doing that. If it's just for fun, cool, whatever. But that's a journey that person is on that none of us can go on, you know. So before I really start here, I wanted to kind of define play. I know people have defined it before. It's something that I thought I knew I had a really good grasp on, what the different kinds of play, why people play, why animals play, like my new kitten here. They've been playing all day. In fact, you might see them kind of rush in and out of this room. And I just simply Googled it, and I found the best site I found was a site from Ireland about childhood welfare and stuff like that. And it's defining the different types of play. I thought this was really cool. And so I'm just going to go through them real quick to kind of narrow in on what we're talking about. There's physical play, like dancing, ball games, like sports type play. There's social play, where you play with other kids. You're like learning to take turns, learning to share, which is really important for children. Now, I say all this as somebody who does not have children, so parents, please correct me if you experience something different. There's constructive play, where children experiment with drawing, music, and building things. This is, when I was thinking of this topic, I thought, how would you describe the type of play that an adult collector like myself might do with a toy? Say, for example, one of these, when I first get them, I do a review. And I always just called it messing with, like I've just been messing with this toy. I always describe it as that, meaning that I'm manipulating and I'm examining it while my cat wrecks my microphone. I'm putting it through transformation, or I'm building it, or whatever it is. And so I just called it messing with play, or casual play, I guess. But I like how this site puts it. It calls it constructive play, which is really, really interesting. Then there's fantasy play, which is, I think, the type of play that most people refer to. And that's using your imagination during play. When I was thinking of my own definitions of it, I was thinking of, pretend play, what people would call pretend play. And then they have here games with rules, but I think you could probably easily put that under social play, probably. So the two I really like to kind of focus in on are constructive play and fantasy play. Fantasy play could be, like I said, pretend play or play where a child or a person is manipulating a toy, and while they're doing it, their brain is kind of in a pretend type state. I remember as a kid, probably 10 or 11, I had a great big battle with my little characters and stuff like that. I just remember it. And I remember my dad had built some cool cabinets in my closet, kind of like this, but for clothes and stuff. And it was a perfect, like, base type of thing. Like, you could put your characters on it and they could jump down. You could put strings on it and they could, rappel down the strings. And I remember specifically playing with that and having like a battle, and then my brother or something knocking on the door, and I kind of snapped too. I remember kind of being in my own little world there for a minute. And I do wonder what's happening there psychologically. Like, is a child or a person who is in pretend play mode, are they kind of like in a half dream state or something? Are they kind of, their imagination is so strong and that toy is pulling it out of them so strongly that are they kind of in an altered state in a way? And it's just really, really interesting and really, really, for lack of a better term, adorable, because I think it's really great when a child or a person has enough security or feels secure enough to actually utilize pretend play. If you see some of the horrible news lately, you'll see kids in the news, they're in a war zone or something like that, and they'll often be playing in like a shanty camp, like a camp with like rags for their roof, and they're still playing with like a stick or playing in the dirt or whatever with other kids. And it kind of breaks my heart, but at the same time, I'm glad that at that moment they're finding a bit of relief through pretend play. Maybe their brains aren't developed enough to know better, but even a small child can understand trauma and can, if they see something traumatic, they can understand that it can affect them. So if I ever had to explain to people why I collect toys at my very advanced age, I'd say that it's because I'm fascinated by the toy as a tool of innocence or of play. It's not that I want to recapture my youth at all. It's not that at all. My youth was great. I had a fantastic youth, but it's that I kind of enjoy the development of toys, the science of toy making, the engineering behind toys, all these really advanced kind of techniques and materials going into something that isn't essentially just a toy, and that toy is designed to help us exist in kind of a pretend world in a way. I know that sometimes when I find a really cool robot or toy that I really like, the stuff that I respond to really tends to be miniaturized stuff. I say, like, instead of like a toy gun or something, I'm not really fond of that kind of real life reminder toy. For me, I like a little version of a big robot because it's a miniaturized thing. So in my hand, I can hold all of the engineering and design of that real life giant robot or robot period, more like the Star Wars bot here that's a little bit more realistic. I can hold like a miniaturized version of that, and in that I can imagine all of the electronics in there and the science used to make it, the people who might control it, in the robot or whatever. I think it's really, really, it's just really neat. To quote Marge Simpson, I just think they're neat. But it comes back to the question of, do adult collectors, people who are older and still have toys and really enjoy the world of toys, do they play with their toys? That brings me to the other meaning of play, or the other definition of play or type of play, and that's constructive play. And I'd say in that way, yes. I build a lot of model kits. If you know my channel, I build a lot of gunpla kits. I'm just fascinated by how they're just getting better and better and better and better and more detailed. Every year, they seem to literally get better, and I'm really, really fascinated. I'm also really fascinated by the character, what you might see as a figure arts standard, which is like instead of a model kit of like a car or a robot or a tank, it's a model kit of a humanoid, a human person, and they're able to now recreate the curves, the fingers, the mouths, the eyes, and it looks more like a toy rather than a model kit. It's not blocky. It's really, really impressive how Bandai and other companies have gotten so good at it. So I've been enjoying those type of things. And for me to build that model kit, to manipulate it, what some people might call posing it. I don't really pose them, but I manipulate them. I mess with them. For me, that's constructive play, and that's something that I think a lot of adult collectors can admit to doing. We don't have a little war and battle and stuff. We don't go psh, psh, psh. Although sometimes I do jokingly on my videos just because it's funny. Or I take one and I attack my cats with it, pew, 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 and my cats will go, it's just really, really funny. Or my wife, my favorite is to take a new toy and be like, he's shooting you, and poke my wife. She's like, stop. Other than that, I don't think I ever exist in the realm of pretend play or participate in pretend play anymore. Even with a video game, when you log into a video game, let's say an MMO, or you're playing a shooter or something, I don't know that that's pretend play as much for an adult. It might be playing a game with rules or social play, because you're not necessarily imagining yourself in that. My cat. You're not necessarily imagining yourself in that avatar on the screen or whatever, but you are firing off an area of your brain that is similar, I think, to watching a movie, reading a good book, something like that. You're really participating in a story, but I don't know that that's play as much as that's just imagination, your imagination working like normal. That's the thing, is our imagination as humans separates us from almost everything on the planet, because we're able to imagine or project a timeline. Some of us are able to literally imagine in space an invention, the size of it, the shape of it, what it needs to look like, and then we can start creating that thing that we imagine, whether it's a thing or whether it's a rule set or a way to react to somebody. We can imagine this scenario, and then we can tweak it over time, and it gets better and better. And that's how we're able to now have a cell phone that can record me at 4K, which in a few years will be laughable, So imagination is what really has separated us from everything on the planet. Play, I think, the one we're talking about probably today, as in pretend play, is something that really only children, I think, probably do, because they haven't really experienced enough reality to know that there's enough thrilling stuff in reality that they don't necessarily have to pretend anymore, if that makes sense. It's not that you lose the ability to pretend play. I think it's just that your brain gets used to reality, and you know how thrilling reality is. So I think most adults don't ever really experience pretend play after a certain age. Back to the original question, though, and the original scenarios that brought this up. People asking if adult collectors still play with their toys. I would never say that if I knew an adult, I'm almost 50, who, let's say a 35-year-old, a 25-year-old, if I knew an adult who actually played, like created little wars and made the sounds with their mouth and participated in pretend play, I would never say that that person is weird or strange or anything like that. I'm not a psychologist, and I would never make that judgment call, because I think to each their own. We all participate in, I think, juvenile parts of life, even after we're not juveniles. I like to think that really, and I've thought this to myself my entire life, really since I was young. I was a very serious kid, I guess, is that adults are just children or young people pretending to be adults. We learn to kind of mask our emotions, or it's the same stuff when we were kids. We get our feelings hurt. We might want to cry, or we see something sad, or if we, we feel the same social pressures, maybe even more so than when you're a kid. It depends on the situation. So I don't think that we're no longer children. We are, but when reality sets in, it either pummels that out of us, or reality is thrilling enough that we don't really need to participate in pretend play anymore, if that makes sense. So I would never say that an adult who participates in pretend play is strange or odd or weird or anything like that. I would never say that. But I would say that if you're an adult who does that often, and you find that it's like kind of almost a private activity. You want to keep it secluded. Maybe it's something you do when no one's home. When it gets to that point, I think you do have to question why you're doing it. Maybe you are going back, regressing a bit to childhood or whatever, which maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe you just enjoy it. So I think it's important to question that. But I don't think people who do that, adults who participate in pretend play, need to be hard on themselves. I think that it's a very normal thing for a human being to want to go back to the innocence of childhood, or to act like a child again, or to want to feel like a child again. I never feel that because I'm very, very happy, luckily, in my life. I always have been. I've never had a lot of money or anything like that, but I've always been okay. I have a great wife, and we have a great life and great animals and a little bit of money so that we can enjoy our hobbies and all that, travel and have fun. But not everybody's in my situation, so I could not blame somebody who was in, for example, a traumatic situation, an adult in a war zone, or even an adult in a normal city who might be going through a traumatic event like a divorce or loss of a child, God forbid, or something horrible like that. I would never blame an adult who goes through that stuff for participating in pretend play if it gives them a feeling of escape, or it's a form of escape for them. But it does bring up a question that I still can't answer as much as I've thought about this, and that is, why do adult collectors collect? Why do people go after like childhood toys with like the fury of 1,000 suns? Why are people so passionate about toys? And I think it's just a really simple answer for the most part, and it's that collecting stuff can be therapeutic. When you check off a list, you're having a good time or whatever, and gathering those materials together, it gives you a sense of control in a world where often people do not feel like they have control. For some people, it can be a FOMO type thing, and that's where it can be dangerous. You're spending too much money. For me, and my cat who's playing right now, for me, it's always about the toy. It's not really about me. It's about the actual object that is the toy. I am not a fan of guns at all. I don't want anything to do with guns. Even in my toys, you might know me if you watch my reviews, I don't use the little guns. I put them in a big box titled weapons, and I never bother with them. I don't want to go shooting. I don't want anything to do with the gun, because a gun to me is a tool of death. That's the whole point of the weapon. Good or bad, that's the point of the weapon. No one can deny that. It's not like a knife where you use it for food preparation and all that stuff. A gun is literally a tool of destruction. Necessary sometimes, sure, but I'm just saying that for me, I'd rather celebrate a tool of imagination and of joy, which is a toy. But mainly I collect, other than that, I collect because I liked the miniaturization, the details, the engineering that goes into a really well-made toy. Not even a really well-made toy, just a really cool toy. Like, I know it when I see it. There's certain toys, I'll just be, scrolling through eBay, I'll put in 1980s robot toys or something, vintage robot toy, whatever, and I'll just scroll through eBay and find stuff that I go, that is so interesting and so cool, and I'll pick it up for $5. I don't blow a bunch of money that way because it can be a little bit wasteful, but I like when the toy has it's kind of beat up. I don't care if it has the packaging with it. I like a toy that looks like it had a history. Maybe a kid played with that toy at one point. I'm not a pristine collector. I don't have to have every little part. I'll often buy some of my old toys that I want to collect in kind of beat up versions. I just don't care if it's perfect, because to me, what the appeal of a toy is that kids or people play with it, either with pretend play or constructive play, or they collect it. There's some story there. It doesn't just sit in a package on a shelf or in a dark room, which is even more sad. So the long and short of it, I guess, is that I do not participate in pretend play with my toys. I haven't done that since I was probably 11 years old, and then I discovered girls, and then all I wanted to do was be around girls. And then I got into music, and then I wanted to be into music and girls. I have always done art. That's a form of play in a way, if you think about it. But I don't pretend play at all. It's not, I don't need to. Life is thrilling enough. Reality is thrilling enough for me. But I do participate, I think, in constructive play, or, what they define as construction play, where I'm manipulating something, I'm investigating something through with this object that is really just meant to be fun to hold and to handle and to play with and stuff. So, fascinating topic. I absolutely love this topic. I still haven't come anywhere near an answer for it, I think, as why do people collect? But I think as a collector, you know whether it's a therapeutic thing, or whether it's, a FOMO thing, or if it's you think it's going to be valuable one day, that kind of thing. There's all sorts of reasons. But let me know in the comments if you stuck through this far, if you actually play with, mess with, manipulate your toys, if you're older or younger or whatever, because it is fascinating. I don't knock anybody who finds themselves pretend playing with toys at a past childhood. Toys do that to you. They definitely still fire off your imagination, even as you get older, of course. Who knows if one day you're going to be sitting there with a stormtrooper toy and you find yourself making pew pew sounds, So, but fascinating topic. Thank you all for joining me. Subscribe if you can, like, comment. I love comments. I love discussing stuff with people who viewed my stuff. So have a good day, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.